Hi, folks. This is Abel James, and welcome to Fat Burning Man, a show with a silly name that talks about cool health and lifestyle hacks that can get you real results. This show, I'm very happy to say, is with one of my inspirations in the health and fitness world, one of my favorite people in the health and fitness world, Mr. Danny Dreyer, the author of Chi Running and many other cool things that teach you how to run and live better. Now, we're going to start with a bit of feedback that I received from the show. I want you guys to know that I am listening and really appreciate getting feedback when you leave a review on iTunes or anywhere else you might be listening to or watching this show. So if you haven't done that already, please do leave a review. I really appreciate it. This one is from JLA Funk called My Inspiration. Abel James has struck gold. His podcast continues to have an amazing assortment of guests, wonderful information, and a level of unbelievable sincerity. I'm very grateful for Abel's courage to step forward and explore the variety of food and exercise options without that cursed enemy of success, shame. He's positive and isn't afraid to ask questions when he needs clarity. It is inspiring me to push myself forward. That's awesome, JLA Funk. I appreciate it. And the whole shame thing, this is actually kind of a funny little backstory. So you guys know the podcast art, which is basically me looking like Wolverine in the woods with my shirt off, totally over the top, as is the name of this show. And my background is as a performer, as a musician. I've been making a fool out of myself for decades in front of thousands of people, and now I've made it a weekly habit. So I appreciate that you notice the shame part, because it goes deeper. You know, not only do I not have very much shame, and I kind of wanted to make fun of myself with Fat Burning Man and as we do this, but also what I saw in the world of health and fitness when I first started this show was so much misery, and people were trying to get results by starving you or yelling at you or doing something totally negative. And even though I kind of have a light side and a dark side, I wanted to make this show all about being positive and helping you guys realize that it can be pretty simple and straightforward and totally awesome to make these changes in your own life. So thank you for noticing that. Thank you for leaving those reviews. And also, I want to add my book, The Wild Diet, is just about to come out, and I'd really appreciate it if you'd take a look. It's available anywhere books are sold, but the best place to go is wilddietbook.com, and we're doing a bunch of giveaways of cooking gear, gadgets, a Fitbit watch, and lots of other cool stuff. So go to wilddietbook.com and check out this book. It's a kick-butt cookbook of all of our favorite recipes, and it has a bunch of memoirs from my travels with my wife Allison and sometimes our dog across the world, looking at food in other cultures, and also living in the woods and foraging for food sometimes, and all sorts of fun things about like really walking the walk, not just kind of doing the let's eat real food and talk about it thing, but really living it. What does it mean to be human in the old school sense? So check out The Wild Diet. If you like this show, I think you'll like the book too. Okay, so Danny Dreyer is the co-founder of Chi Running, a revolutionary approach to running technique that has been rocking the running world for the last 15 years. His work is based on his 15-year study of Tai Chi and his 45 years of running, racing, and coaching people in energy efficiency, injury prevention, and intelligent movement. Danny and his wife, Catherine, co-authored the best-selling running book, Chi Running, as well as Chi Walking and Chi Marathon, and have introduced the world to the concept of approaching running and sports in general as mindful practices. In this show with Danny, we talk about why if you learned how to run as an athlete, like me, you might be running wrong, how to choose the best place for you and your family to live, what areas of your performance could you enhance by actually relaxing, not forcing effort, but relaxing into your movement. And one little exercise you can do right now to get more energy instantly. All right, let's go hang out with Danny. Hey folks, we're here with someone I'm very honored to call a friend, the man who brings mindfulness to running and sports in general, Mr. Danny Dreyer. How's it going?
Hey, really good. Nice to talk with you again, Abel. It's like you said, it's been too long.
It's been too long, yeah. We need to see each other more often. We're both flying around all the time. Who knows where you're going to catch us, though, is the problem.
Exactly.
So how have things been? I know a lot of people might not have actually heard your other show on Fat Burning Man because it was just a while ago.
Yeah, well,
But you are one of the most powerful influences that I had when I was running a lot and when I was doing marathon running, because you teach people to bring a totally different mojo to running and to sports and to movement. So I'll just let you talk about that a little bit and preface it by saying you're one of my heroes.
oh, thank you, Abel. That's very nice of you. And I was actually honored to have Abel come to my last class that I taught in Austin.
Pretty
It was
cool.
A gas to meet Abel and run with him and have him in the class. So, well, basically, what we're doing is when Abel says we're trying to do a completely different take on this whole running scene, is that, I'm really kind of tired of hearing about all the running injuries.
Yeah.
So how do we get rid of that? How do we train people to run in a way that they don't hurt themselves? And if you can get to where you don't hurt yourself when you run, then you can run more efficiently. Then you can go farther or faster or whatever you want to do with running. But you got to get that first part down right. It's hard to go really fast in a jalopy. So you want to,
and you see, it's so hard. I try not to be judgmental with anything that's going on, but sometimes, a runner will catch my eye, especially if we're out on a trail or something. And some of those endurance people are just like, oh, you got to stop moving because what you're doing to yourself is just torture. But you do it. I mean, it starts from a place of balance and efficiency and fluid movement where it's almost like you're floating if you're doing it right.
Yeah, the whole emphasis is, with Chi running, I actually brought it all in from my practice of Tai Chi. So all of your movement really comes from the great support you can get from your core. It comes from the propulsion you can borrow from gravity.
Right.
And it comes from learning how to relax all the moving parts so there's no resistance to your forward motion.
Yeah.
Do those three and you're golden,
Sorry, keep going.
No, I'm just saying that is a really different way to approach running. Most people approach running from like, I got to push myself around with my legs all day.
Yeah, exactly. I was always a runner, but I was taught to go faster and do whatever it takes to go faster, right? So a lot of times that would compromise form and you wouldn't even know it just because, you're chasing after a time and you're used to running being hurt. That's just what happens, right? That's what happens when you run wrong. Anyway.
Well, I just wrote a blog recently on performance. And what I really want is for people, beginning runners, people who've never run, injured runners, no matter what level of runner you are, performance is really something to be thinking about, not in terms of performance like when people hear the word performance and runners are mentioned in the same sentence. It's not like you can only be an elite runner and think about performance.
Right.
It's really about performance at any level, performance for everyone.
Yeah.
Because performance, I think I said in my blog, if you break down the word performance, P-E-R, per, the first syllable is through, per, pair, in Latin. Form is obviously through a certain mode, performance. So you're paying attention to form. And any word that ends in A-N-C-E is the act of performance, dalliance, reliance, you name it. And so it's the act of moving through, moving forward, paying attention to your form. It's not paying attention to, am I going to win or not?
Yeah.
And that's what people think performance means. Performance means you got to always do your best. You got to always be the fastest. You got to always be the strongest. That's what they equate performance with. And I want to go, no. Let's slow down a bit. Let's go back to the original definition of performance is really getting better through technique.
Through technique,
The form is. And if you get that good, all you do is add a few things, tweak it a little, and you are fast.
But you're never done, I think is one thing that's important to note, right?
No, it's a lifelong practice. And, that's why we try to promote running and walking as mindful practices, because then every time you go out to do it, you're always paying attention to what you're doing so you can just get better at doing what you're doing. That's how you master anything.
Yeah.
But if you just go out and push, how are you going to master it? You might get really fast, but you might not have ever mastered really good running or really efficient running or light on your feet or less impact or all the things that make a high performance runner at any speed. Yeah.
It's almost like the way that we're taught, especially in schools or as athletes around movement. It's all about that pushing, and they talk about the mental game, but it's more about just keep going, right? It's only like half the equation. Whereas one of the things I love about your work is you really bring in the sensing, and that's something that you can learn in a bunch of different ways. But I think one of the best ways to do it is while you're walking or while you're running, because you get so much so much input that can rise above the noise, I think, that most of us usually have just sitting there or being in a normal day. Being more active allows you to really sense like, oh wow, my right foot is kind of waggling all around before I come back down on the ground. Like, let's reconnecting your extremities and your visual inputs that your brain gets with that's basically Tai Chi, right? What we're talking about there. It's totally Tai Chi. So can you talk for people who aren't
experience?
For people who aren't like that familiar? I do Qigong every morning, and it's been one of the most like powerful things for me in terms of balance, but really just it's almost like a calibration that you get every day, right? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, it's like doing a reset. It's like hitting the reset button on a computer. If you want to refresh, you get up in the morning and you go, okay, what can I do to set myself off in the best mode today? What's in front of me right today? So you might wake up with a sore back. Okay. So you don't say to yourself, oh, I got a sore back. What a drag. I'm going to pop an Advil and I got to get cranking. It's like, oh, I wonder where that came from. Why am I feeling that? What can I do to move through the day and help that sore back just work its way out? So it is that reset you're talking about. It's being able to sense your body first. And that's the one thing we are very, very few of us are ever taught how to do, how to sense your body. Like I've said before, a lot of times, if we were taught how to sense our bodies all the way through our educational process, we'd know when to go to sleep, when to stop eating, when to exercise, when to get up from our desk and take a breath and walk around the room. Well, you'd be sensing in your body that, okay, my energy is like getting really flat right now, or my ass is hurting, so I better get up and walk around.
Right.
Or, something like that. That's body sensing. And how that applies to when you go into your running or walking is that this whole performance issue is, I want to see how I can get somebody to perform better without having to get stronger. What else can you do? What tension can you drop? What focuses can you have to increase your range of motion? How can you relax? How can you keep your body aligned in the direction you're headed? All these other things that if you just did those, you wouldn't have to add in strength training.
Right.
If you subtract everything that's holding you back from moving as easily and more fluidly as you could, imagine what that would be like.
Right. I remember it was so interesting when I was younger and racing in schools. I was never close to elite level, but I was like pretty good. So what you'd get though is people of all sorts of shapes and sizes running in completely different ways, right? Like there are these tiny little guys who are full of muscles, who look like they could just do backflips the whole time. And then there are these tall, lanky, giraffe-like characters. And then there are guys like me who are somewhere in between, but usually not that good at really long distances because I carry too much weight. But man, watching the way that each individual runs, especially the people who are better, who have clearly worked on their own form, it's not something that you can just kind of take a template and slap it onto someone most of the time. But I think if you could, your technique gets pretty close. So if people are moving or walking, what do you tell them to do at the beginning? What's an easy win?
Oh, an easy win. This is a really easy win. Okay, I was just giving a talk at REI last night, and so I had everybody stand up, and I go, okay, first thing you want to do, beyond anything, is straighten yourself up. Because if you're trying to walk and you're hunched over, or you're trying to run and you're hunched over, it's going to make your body have to just work that much harder. So all you have to do is, lift at the crown of your head. They tell you in every yoga class, you work at it in Pilates, you're always trying to reach with the crown of your head. So if you can imagine that you're just suspended by the crown of your head, then just imagine that your body hangs from below that.
Yeah, like a puppet.
It's like when you go to Google Maps and you drag that little guy over the blue line. He's just like hanging like that. That's the image I get of you picked up by the crown of your head.
Yeah.
And so when you're moving, when you're sitting, like whatever you're doing, if you can just always imagine kind of being suspended that way, it just naturally aligns your posture.
Yeah.
That gets your circulation going better, gets your nervous system aligned, gets your meridians aligned, and it just makes energy move through your body because you're not all bent up like a bad set of plumbing.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. And it really is. That's one thing that helped. I always could conceptualize that, but it never really rang true until I started doing the movements of something like yoga, tai chi, qigong, which really kind of, you can feel like your liver and kidney collapsing on themselves and kind of the blood rushing back in as you move around. It's a very powerful thing, and you learn to sense so much more in your body.
You get a real chance to feel what we're talking about, you know?
Yeah, it's great. So anyone who hasn't experimented with those kinds of movements, I'm curious, Danny, what are the things that you do to stay limber before you go on because you're no slouch when it comes to running. You can go and you can run with the best of them, but what do you actually do to make sure that you're in the right space?
Okay, so every morning I do a set of exercises that is a type of stretching. It's more kind of like yoga. But I do repetitions where I hold a pose for a couple of seconds, but that pose is kind of like a stretch. I don't do stretches where I hold a long stretch. I don't know if you've heard of AIS.
Yeah.
Active isolated stretching. That's kind of what I do. And so I just do really short 2-second stretches, and I do about 10 of them. Okay. It really helps lengthen that. That's one of the best things that I've found that I do. So I have a nice little series that I do for my hip flexors. I have one that I do, for my erector spinae. I have, all the different, my hamstrings, all the moving parts of my body. I try to get those pretty loose. But I do this, when I first get up. I don't do it like right before I run. It's just part of my early morning routine to get my energy flowing.
Yeah.
And at some point I head out the door and I go running, and that is already in my body because I've done a nice full stretching session.
Yeah.
I kind of cooled out. I take some time, put on my running clothes, and then I head out the door. And I don't stretch after I run out the door. That's that's part of my routine. Usually I actually do that little stretching routine as I go into my sitting meditation, and then I do that, and then I get up from that, and then I go run. That way I'm very centered. I'm also relaxed. I'm also stretched out. Everything's happening right off the first step.
Totally. So it's so interesting because I love those little tidbits of information about people because everyone stretches. No one really talks about it that much because it's so boring or whatever. But I think the fact that you do it in the morning, because I started doing the same thing, and you're used to, as an athlete or as someone who just wants to get out there and move, you're used to that being kind of a cue that you should, I'm being active now, or I'm using my body now. When you start doing that in the morning as a part of waking up and sensing yourself as a ritual, you're totally right. It's like I go out for runs now, but I'm always just ready. And when I'm standing correctly because everything from the get-go, you kind of started your day that way. And it's funny because if I push those exercises out, or if someone interrupts me or I wake up too early or something like that, I can really tell because you're almost in this grog, this perpetual grog until you get that stretching, that movement going. But once you do, you're ready for anything, and you're more conscious of the way that you're standing, presenting yourself, even using your voice, breathing. One of the other quick wins for people, I think, that you teach people more so than other, certainly running teachers, is breath. So how do you keep that under control? How do you develop that? We're at elevation right now, so it's always interesting throwing a 70-pound kettlebell around when you're not used to the elevation. So let's talk about breath.
Yeah, when I grew up in Boulder, so when I go back to Boulder now that I'm living at 2,000 feet, I go to 6,000 feet.
It'll get you.
But what I do is I do belly breathing, so that circulates air much deeper into my lungs, and I try to do belly breathing as often during my day, during my morning ritual, during all that stuff, when I'm meditating, everything. When I'm stretching, I'm always belly breathing, so I'm always exercising the muscle of my diaphragm.
Yeah.
Okay, so it gets strong.
Right.
And also, if you belly breathe, you get really used to bringing air deeply into the bottom of your lungs, because that's what belly breathing does. And I really, really try to avoid mouth breathing and short, shallow breaths. So I really, when I'm out running, especially when I'm warming up, I breathe only through my nose.
Okay.
Yeah, and see, this is interesting what this does. And I just learned about this. There's a wonderful guy named Patrick McEwen in Ireland, and we've gotten to be good friends. And he has totally studied this technique of breathing invented by some Russian guy. His name is Buteyko, is the Russian guy. But this guy is really into training your breath. And you can actually duplicate what it's like to do high altitude training without going to a high altitude. And so,
how do you do that?
Oh, it's very cool. Like, I'm totally into this thing right now.
Yeah.
And so it's a system of breath holding. So you hold your, I'll give you, I mean, I could explain the whole thing right now, but if I go into just an overview of it, basically you're holding your breath, but you're not taking in a huge breath and then holding it. You're letting out all your air and then hold it, and then going for a walk, just a few steps. And you only step for as long as you can still hold your breath without gasping in. And he even has you hold your nose. And so usually for most people, it's maybe 10 steps, and you try to gradually build up. What that does is it starves your lungs for oxygen. Okay, so you do this series about 8 or 10 times in a row, once a day, 8 or 10 times in a row. Just see how far you can walk holding your breath out. Okay? And then when you breathe in, you don't gasp in, you just take in little, you kind of starve yourself still. That's that oxygen starvation actually triggers your lungs to start and your body to start producing more red blood cells, hemoglobin to transport oxygen, and increasing the capillary beds in your lungs. So all those three are exactly what happens if you go train at altitude.
Yeah,
so
that's brilliant.
If you do this every day, you gradually, your lungs, your body gets used to like producing this thing. And he said and he has all the scientific studies to back this up. And he also says at some point further along, your bone marrow actually starts producing more red blood cells. And he says this is legal doping. He's in Europe, so that's the big thing there, and so he's checked it out with the licensing people. Is this legal? And they said, absolutely. You're not doing anything external. This is totally internal. It's legal. And so he's been working with some high caliber athletes, and and I'm not sure if I'm at liberty to name them, but there are two of probably the fastest runners in the world right now.
Yeah.
And they train together, and they are doing this breath work. But it's really revolutionary, and I love it. So it's going to be coming out in my performance series. That's what I'm actually coming out with this fall.
Yeah. How
to get high performance without high muscle training.
Yeah.
It's a part of it. So anyway, I've been doing this whole breath work, and it has done amazing things.
Yeah.
So even if you don't do that, if you just learn to breathe through your nose and slightly starve your body of oxygen when you're running, and then try to see how fast you can actually run or how long you can keep running just breathing through your nose. And eventually you should be able, at this point I can hold like a 7.5 minute pace with my mouth shut.
Really?
Yeah.
How about that? That's cool.
It's very cool. And so I can imagine how fast I'd go if I opened my mouth.
But that's what other people do.
That's what other people do, yeah.
Oh, that's so great. We're actually going to
breath work. This guy wrote a whole book, and it's coming out in September.
Cool. So that's fun. Cool. We're going to Peru next week, and we're going to be up at altitude hiking around. So I actually got I didn't even know that this existed, but a high altitude training mask, which actually just it's like a gas mask, like Bane from Batman, that just lets half the air in as usual, but it's all stinky and smelly. I love that. I figured I'd try it, but it was terrible. And,
I read some reviews on that. I
did you?
You just told me.
Yeah.
Breathe through your nose.
So I mean, doing something as simple as holding your breath and focusing on sensing once again, instead of buying some gadget to do it for you, is a really, really cool practice. And I could see how that would, if you go from not doing that at all to just starting, I would imagine that the benefits kick in pretty quickly in terms of how much you can improve.
This guy says in 6 weeks, he's fixed people from having exercise-induced asthma. Gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
that doesn't surprise me when you think
patients.
about it.
He teaches to little kids that have breathing problems or breathing obstruction problems.
Yeah.
He started off just doing that stuff, not even talking to athletes.
Right.
And then he realized, oh my God, this is like, this is high altitude training.
Yeah.
There's no altitude.
That's
and he
so
just
cool.
went really crazy. So it really does work. And he's got his book. He sent me an advanced copy. He's got, I believe, 25 pages of nothing but the listing of the studies that back up how effective this thing is.
Wow.
Scientific studies. So it's at this point proven, but it's not out.
Yeah.
It's not
the
out
real
yet.
deal.
You heard it first on the Abel James show.
Right. That's what we're going for, man. I mean,
yeah,
let's keep up with this stuff. But let's switch gears a little bit, because I don't think I've talked about this, but it's a huge thing that we're after in terms of how we're living our lives and where we choose to actually settle down is clean air. We were just out in Hollywood for a while, and we almost just can't stand it. Driving in there, it's just this cloud of poisonous gas. And both of us, going to LA, it's like it cripples our immune system when we're in that. And there's just a really powerful documentary out of China, I think, that's starting to go viral online about air pollution.
About that on NPR yesterday.
Yeah, and Asheville has what we were looking at some of the best cities in America, and Asheville is right up there. So can you talk a little bit about breath and keeping it? Because I know part of your whole philosophy is life in the foods that you eat, like kind of like the belief in the inputs to your body. There's something bigger that you're breathing in, right? So can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, in terms of well, I want to make sure I'm clear on your question.
Yeah, sure. So
Yeah.
basically, clean air and breathing correctly. I think one of the issues today is that breathing is overlooked. And so a lot of us are breathing polluted air. Well, it could be inside buildings, right? Like office buildings or in the off-gassing, or even like a normal couch is just spewing out chemicals. And I know that you someone who does running clinics, like can you talk about the importance of clean air? How about that?
It's total. Well, the importance of clean air, I can't talk about it enough, because if it's no different than drinking clean water. We only drink water out of our Kangen water filter.
Oh yeah.
And so that we can trust that we're actually taking a lot of the chemicals out of our water, so it doesn't pile up in our system. Same thing with breathing, so it's important that's really another reason why nose breathing is so good, because it filters a lot of the particles, little, it not only filters the dust particles and stuff out of the air, but also your body produces nitric oxide. It's a gas. It's not nitrous oxide. If it did, that would be fun.
That would be hilarious.
The nitric oxide is a vasodilator. So it increases your blood flow, right?
It's all the rage on Amazon these days.
Is it? What, they sell little cans of it now or something?
Yeah.
No, this nitric oxide is produced in the soft palate above your nose. Isn't just your sinuses. It's this whole upper area of your head. When you nose breathe, you intake that nitric oxide, and it's also produced in the lining of your blood vessels. And so that nitric oxide is a natural inside your body vasodilator. So it improves your circulation as well. So that's just to back up a little, another reason to have nose breathing, because you breathe cleaner air. If you breathe in through your mouth, you have no chance, no prayer of not only getting clean air, but you totally short circuit the path that would take in that nitric oxide. It goes straight through, bypasses.
Right.
So,
it's a totally different system that most people don't nurture. When you're in a cloud of smog, you kind of realize how important that is. Or in sometimes there'll be dust storms in Arizona or at Burning Man or like somewhere else, and you learn. It's like you learn how to use your own body again. But we realize in times like that we never even really learned how to do it in the first place. So it's kind of neat to be conscious, bring consciousness to how you're using your breath throughout the entire day.
I try, when you ask for very practical things to do around not breathing bad air, don't run on roads. Or at least if you do run in quiet neighborhoods, that's what I do. If I need to do a road workout, I'll go to a backwoods neighborhood, so I'm not on a major thoroughfare, just totally breathing, carbon dioxide and or carbon monoxide, and then I also happen to have chosen a place that has really good air. And the other place I lived in before this was San Rafael, California, which is like comes right off the ocean, man.
Yeah, right.
It's like, I mean, I know the air from LA comes off the ocean, but they've got so much pollution, it's kind of holding the air to the west.
Man,
it's like a wall.
Just looking at that down from the mountains, we were just up there and just looking at that that cloud is just straight out of dystopian.
Bounce off the top of it.
Right.
And the people that live there don't really realize what they're living.
You get used to it.
Their color looks like from above and from far away.
Yeah.
And so you make your choices. So we've just decided to get really clean water where we live, and really clean. We're in the mountains, so we have lots of rain here. We get really good clean groundwater. Now, you're not going to get the same groundwater living in the Castro Valley in California because it's completely full of fertilizer.
Right.
Okay, so we're trying to get clean water. We live in the mountains where the air is cleaner, and just more chi. Our whole thing about chi living is like that's what chi is. How do you keep the aliveness and the energy going? How do you pick an environment that has higher odds of getting that? I'm not saying like there is the perfect place to live, but like I said, you can really pick places that have maybe 3 of the top 5 items to make a good quality life, and we just try to do as many of them as possible.
No, I think you've made some good choices in that regard.
Yeah, that's true.
It's really striking, though. I mean, you get used to living wherever you are. And whether that's in the middle of New York City, I lived there for about a month, and similar air problems. But you could really, it's easy to try to convince yourself that it's not a problem. But going out for a run in a place like New York, I just don't do it anymore. Or in LA, if I'm traveling to places with bad air, it's just so obvious to me now in the way that it shuts my own body down. Not being used to it. Your body bringing in all this like clean mountain air, you put it into a smog cloud, and all of a sudden your immune system freaks out. And man, it's so easy to overlook these days. But I think runners, if anyone, and hikers and outdoors people are kind of like air connoisseurs. So I know you're one of them.
They're like air snobs.
Air snobs, totally. But we are too, because we're trying to figure out, not just where to live, but where to raise the next generation. And so many places, unfortunately, have kind of sacrificed, if not the water, then the air or something else that you mentioned. That it's really easy, like I said, to overlook that. But man, like driving around in Arizona, they had like just off-gassing the sewage plant in certain neighborhoods, or the swine farms or factory farmed cattle and dairy. It's if you have any options there, and you're listening to this, do the best you can to just get the good stuff, the clean stuff.
And if you do happen to travel, and I have to do this when I have to go to LA, I have to go to New York City, I have to go to all those places. And so when I do go there, like you said, I cut my runs a little shorter if I do run. I try to stay off the main roads. I do neti pots all the time.
Yeah.
If people don't know what they are, it's just like running nice saline solution through your sinuses to keep all those nasty particles out. And I up my level of vitamin C that I'm taking, so I boost my immune system. I eat vegetables and meals that help to boost my immune system. So when I am traveling, I'm taking care of that stuff internally.
Yeah.
To make sure that the environment isn't like dragging me down.
Right.
So I'm really trying to counterbalance all of that stuff. And going back to the pollution thing, we were in Shanghai a few years back, and there were days when I would be standing on the street corner and I couldn't see the building a block away.
Wow.
I have a picture that I took when we were leaving at the airport, straight on at the sun. And it looked like one of these foggy days where you kind of see this little orange globe.
Yeah.
It was a cloudless day.
Jeez.
And I was taking a shot straight at the sun. And it was really hard. I definitely didn't run there.
Yeah.
And I think that's why that documentary came out, you know.
Sure. Yeah. And I remember just reading one of the like things that came out about that documentary that kind of like just mentioned that there were only 155 days a year that you can go outside safely or something like that. And it's so sad that some people are growing up in that world. Right. Yeah. And so it's, for an air snob or for a runner or anyone who really cares about their own performance. Because like if your immune system breaks down, especially someone like a marathon runner, and you teach people how to go for a really long time, I mean, that directly affects your performance. Yes. Right. So it's almost a matter of necessity if you're an athlete to look for the cleanest air. Not just as a lifestyle thing, but as a performance thing too. So keeping that in mind is really important. Are there any other like counterbalances? Say someone is stuck in a less than ideal place.
Let me see. Well, like I said, breathe through your nose. Counterbalancing, drink lots of water. Mm-hmm. Really helps flush those toxins out of your system. And if you need to, take saunas or sweat, really sweat a lot. Eat the cleanest food you can. You know that. So you don't want to put any toxins in your diet from the food, fertilizers or GMOs or all of that stuff. So it's just making kind of all around choices. But I can't think of anything additional that I would do right off the bat. If I think of something, I'll let you know. But just immediately, like if I go to a city, I'm only there for about 3 days. Mm-hmm. So I just really manage it the whole time I'm there for 3 days. And then once I'm back, I'm back,
How do you get clean water on the road?
I filter it.
Yeah.
I carry a little water filter.
Okay.
Or I buy bottled water and I only drink that, spring water. And I try to only get spring water. I don't get this, Dasani water or the stuff made by Coke or Pepsi. No, that's not water.
Why not? Can I ask you that?
Well, because they even add stuff to flavor it.
Right.
And they, it's not, who knows what their source is?
Yeah.
I don't know what their source is. But if I can find somebody who bottles it at the headwaters of a spring, they're more likely, to have cleaner water. And if the spring is in the mountains, it's even more clean because it's less time to, hang around in low earth, and pick up a lot of stuff. So I buy water. I don't pull it out of the tap at all.
Yeah, totally. It was so neat. I went to this dingy little dojo when I was a little kid and studied karate. And after we'd spar and just, we probably wouldn't, I'm sure we weren't drinking enough water the whole time. But there was this spring that was just like across the road. And there was like a ladle with all of this, algae growing in it. And it looked super gnarly, but the taste of that water, it's like you're drinking the earth's blood or something like that. Yeah. It's like most people or a lot of people in America, we're not used to seeing water as a nutrient in and of itself, something that's kind of its own unique art. Really, I mean, tasting water from different parts of the world, finding those springs is just so incredible. My mom actually was in upstate New York, and said that there are a lot of springs up there that still exist that used to have lithium in them and other kind of like medicinal elements that people would drink whenever they had a particular problem, mental or physical. And so looking for those things is really a lot of fun. So we kind of, when we're traveling, we're always like looking at where the water comes from. It's the next oil. Yeah. That's what the oil companies are saying. So we might as well try to preempt that a little bit.
Might as well. And, when I'm running now, if I'm doing a trail run and I come upon a spring, I never have a problem drinking out of a spring. If I can see it coming right out of the rock, I have no problem drinking out of it. And so I don't have to carry as much water and stuff like that. And some people, oh my God, I wouldn't go near that stuff. But, I've been doing it for so many years now that my body has built up antibodies. If there are any amoebas or something like it, even in a spring, I doubt if there are, but it has never backfired on me. So it's paid off.
And there's research going back and forth on that all the time. Oh, you got to have it super clean. Oh, wait, you have to have it dirty, and then you're even healthier. It's like every week there's another headline like
dirt,
that.
My mother never had a problem with me eating dirt as a kid.
Yeah.
And today everybody's like so paranoid about things. We're like too clean.
Right.
And then everybody gets sick easier. So
it's crazy.
Dirt, dirty dojos, dirty kids, it's like,
Well, we're just about out of time, but why don't you leave folks with one piece of practical advice that they can do, like right now, to bring mindfulness to their own bodies?
Okay. So mindfulness here. So right now, you're probably sitting down. I doubt if anybody's walking around listening to this podcast. So if you're sitting down, I want you to just feel your sits bones underneath you on the chair. Just feel your own body weight on the chair. Okay. And just feel what that feels like. And then what I want you to do is to feel not only your tailbone down on the chair, but feel the crown of your head and just kind of lift up. And I want you just to feel this nice little light tension it creates between the top of your head and the bottom of your pelvis. Just a nice little tension as you sit up.
Feels better already.
Yeah. And you'll notice that, you can breathe better. Your mind gets a little clearer. Your circulation gets a little more open. It just straightens everything up. And just imagine that that's your reset button.
Yeah.
Your body. So, however many times you can remind yourself to do it's such a simple act, but most people don't do it.
Yeah.
So, align yourself over and over, set a little alarm, put a sticky note on your computer monitor, sit up, just always create that practice of always going back into alignment.
Yeah, it's good to check yourself every 5 minutes even.
Yeah, because being mindful brings you back into your body, sensing your body, feeling yourself, where am I at right now?
Yeah. One thing, I'm reading this book on like an ancient Taoist master, and it talks about all the animal forms in a lot of the different martial arts, which is so neat. But they say one thing about monkeys, which is that they can't stand up straight, so they never stop moving. They're always kind of like moving back and forth. And I noticed that, with my own body, just making sure that the muscles are kind of, not locking up and that the joints are open. That's one thing that I'm often doing if I'm because I'm standing most of the day. So if I'm playing music, I'm dancing around in my own body, or I'm, if you're telling a story, you do it with your whole body. You're moving, making movement a part of what you do. I think is something that you're so good at training people, because I've seen so many different types of people come to your classes, and it's so neat to see how they can all straighten up and align, and you take them from running haphazardly to just moving in such beautiful ways.
Yeah, our latest little program, I just want to tell you that our latest little thing that I've been working on right now, that'll be launched sometime in April, is we're going to have a little subscription thing where people sign up and they get one lesson a week delivered to their inbox.
Yeah.
It's a video, and it's just like what I just told you.
Cool.
It's one of these little things, and you just practice that for a week. So and then the next week you get a new one. And then each one comes with a little audio download, so you can listen to it on your run or out walking, whatever. But what I've seen is that in order to be mindful, you have to be mindful all the time. You can't just be mindful once a day.
Right.
That doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But so if we can get people to do it at least 7 days in a row, they kind of get used to this thing of like, oh, I'm always doing this. I'm always doing, whoa, I got a new one to do this week. Let's try that,
That's
great.
It's
been so much fun to build this and film it and get it going, because I really want everybody to get this sense of mindfulness of like, yeah, that's your lifestyle, like brushing your teeth, like breathing, like, feeling your body should be like, so often that it's so immediate. It's like the hands. It's like your hands, fingers. It's like having a face, Doing the right thing is like smiling. You do it so many times a day. Let it become a part of your everyday life.
Yeah.
If you want to work, and eventually your life is a different life. Because you're doing all these little things all along.
Yeah, totally. Well, Danny, thank you so much for coming on this show. You totally rock. Why don't you tell folks one more time before you go where they can find you? Oh, you can find me at www.chirunning.com. It's CHI running.com. And we've got tons of stuff happening on our website, and we're refurbishing it all the time. So we're happy to have you. And I'll be teaching in Miami this weekend. If anybody's down there, give us a holler. I'm flying out tomorrow. So there's still room in our class. And if you guys are, I mean, Danny, you're always all over the place. So if you guys are in any of the places that Danny goes to, which is a lot of them, definitely take a look at his classes. So go to his website, check it out. And Chi Running is one of my favorite books of all time, really, especially, as a runner and just in terms of bringing mindfulness to pretty much everything you do. It's a great teacher. So Danny, thanks again. And we'll chat soon.
Good. Come visit us in Asheville.
Sounds good.
We got good air.
You do.
All right. Take care.